Good evening, good night, and welcome to Mindful Live 358. I am your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is the 5th of March 2024. The year is speeding along as it usually does, and we are here. Make sure you hit that like button, double tap the screen over there on TikTok. That's how you hit that like button over there. However, you hit that like button on Instagram, it really does help also. And do hit that like button on YouTube as you view this, maybe on repeat, or even if you are looking at this live. If you are not subscribed to my YouTube channel yet over there on YouTube, Nathan Springer, head over and subscribe. Catch all of the lives you may have missed. You can catch them on repeat over there, so you don't have to miss any of them. Wonderful. And you're able to see the articles that I'm reading and where I'm getting the information from. If you're wondering, what on earth is he reading? Where is he getting what he's saying from? Well, on YouTube, you could actually see the articles as I read them. Benefit. Nathan Spring over there on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. Fashion USA says, would it be possible to have 2 votes system, one for Prime Minister and one for your representative? Well, Mr. Fashion, there's currently a committee going around that seeks to get public views on possible constitutional reform, changes to our constitution, and that is something that can be changed by our constitution. We could decide that we would like different style of elections, and I think that might actually be a beneficial thing. I would like to vote for Prime Minister separately than voting for the MP. That way, to me, it separates the parties and politics even a little more. So it's possible that I could find that maybe the UNC's leader may make a better prime minister, while I may find that the member of parliament or the PNM might be a better member of parliament for my district. Now, the difficulty with that is the nature of how a prime minister is selected. A prime minister isn't selected based on popular votes per se. A prime minister is the MP who commands the most support from the other MPs. So you see, in the ideal of it, a prime minister didn't even have to be chosen from the winning party. All of the MPs could go up as independent candidates for their district. Their district select them, and who the MPs select as the person that they could listen to the most of them select as the person they could listen to the most. That person is the prime minister. Makes sense. But as our system has evolved, our system has locked it into a kind of partisan angle, where it seems now like it's impossible to get anything done, and one vote is all you get. You select one side of a coin that is going to do whatever they want to do anyway. It kind of feels like you don't have much power in it. That's not going to happen in Trinidad and Tobago. Why not? What's not going to happen in Trinidad and Tobago? But let's jump into the political news of politics. Griffith, join with UNC, NTA, but don't undermine alliance. Griffith out here talking as a senior member of the alliance between the UNC and the NTA. And he's telling all newcomers to the alliance to, know your place. National Transformation Alliance political leader Gary Griffith says political parties are welcome to throw their support behind any other political party. However, he hopes if they join the alliance between his party and the UNC, the parties will not undermine each other. His comments came in response to the People Empowerment Party's recent move to endorse the UNC political leader Kamla Persad-Visesa to publicly support the party in the next general election. Any political party who wants to throw their support behind any other political party, that is their right to do so. The other party can certainly welcome them, Griffith said. However, there is an alliance among political parties at this time. It was the UNC and the NTA. Nothing has changed. So this would be one of him PEP political leader Philip Alexander joining the alliance of the UNC and the NTA. So in other words, Griffith is basically letting the country know that if you all assumed that the alliance between the NT and the UNC was quits because of the little brouhaha last week, you all are mistaken. The alliance still stands, and I still hold my position as a senior member of this alliance. And anyone seeking to join must respect us as they join. Now, it's kind of interesting because it could nearly seem like these third parties, these secondary parties, if you will, are trying to fight for the pole position as right-hand man in the UNC alliance. It could nearly seem like that. When you see what Mr. Alexander said, Alexander, Kamala was damn right. PPNDC support UNC. And this is interesting because Mr. Alexander has had choice words before about the UNC, and Mrs. Prasad Visasa Kamala was damn right. Progressive Empowerment Party political leader Philip Edward Alexander said of UNC political leader Kamala Prasad Visasa's call for smaller political parties' vision to align with the party and bring something to the table. Prasad Visasa made the comments. We know when and why she made those comments. We know when and why she made those comments. Let's get things on muted silence over here. Right. We understand why when she made the call. In a statement on March 1st, the PEP said during an extraordinary meeting, its executive and members voted to endorse Prasad Visasa and to publicly support the UNC in the next general election. The statement said it was the PP's position that the country would not do well under a third term of PNM rule. It added that as all other options, including going it alone or joining with other third parties, only help the current administration, the party decided to use its resources and voice to help the UNC form the next government. So the PP is going to help the UNC form the next government. You know, when he resigned, I remember someone asking the question, hasn't this happened before? Didn't this person resign and come back? And at some point in time, the resigning and coming back leaves a bad taste in people's mouth. And it's difficult to me to claim a democratic party when your party is like your birthright that you could put down and pick up on a whim when you decide. He said the PP was not a smaller party like some, but described it as a real political party effecting change nationally. Kamala Prasad Visasa was damn right. When you look at a meeting with the NTA, COP and HOPE, those three parties used to be part of the COP, he said. Alexander said those parties splintered into smaller ones and called themselves political parties. You cannot call yourself a political party until you are able to contest a national election, he said. He said a party must be able to contest national elections, win and form a government with sufficient numbers and resources. Alexander said some were trying to take advantage of what they thought was political desperation because Prasad Visasa did not want to lose a third general election and should not have to do so. So he is saying that some of these other parties seem like they want to take advantage. They want to take advantage of the UNC's position, of Mrs. Prasad Visasa's position. She's in a kind of vulnerable position. She's coming off a losing streak here. And it seems like it may be a square up with the same opponents again. And this is something I was saying at the beginning. Now, if you're telling me the country, the same country of Trinidad and Tobago, already voted for the same people twice, and the result was the same every time, why go back to another election with the same people in the same country and expect something different? Like, what has changed in Trinidad and Tobago so greatly in the last 5 years that you think the country is going to sway its view of KPB so much that they're going to put her in? Do you think Mrs. Prasad Bisesa gained support over the last 5 years? Honestly, do you think so? I don't really think so. I think at best, the best hope she had in terms of support was to maintain the same amount of support. And more than likely, she may have lost some. So, Mr. Alexander, I think, is right. Many of these third parties are sensing the desperation in the UNC's ranks. The UNC does not want to lose again, particularly Kamala Prasad Bisesa, because there's a losing streak there. And it may seem obvious that in order for her to win, the only possible option is she must join in some kind of alliance. And if that's the case, you could feel like, you know, there's a wringing of the hand behind the back, some level of desperation in this choosing. And the third parties could be, you know, trying to move around their weight and express their weight in that way. And Mr. Alexander is saying that, you know, these third parties are trying to do that. But not him. Not him, no. He is just there. He is just there because he cares. And he thinks that, you know, this would be best for country. So he's not seeking an opportunist move. No. He is not trying to get in good with the UNC so he gets a good position in a possible government being formed. No, that's the other third party's attempt. His attempt is just, you know, but within the PEP itself, there has been a bit of rumblings in PEP as Alexander returns as a leader. Former deputy political leader of the Progressive Empowerment Party, Lima McLeod Wilkinson, is questioning how Philip Edward Alexander returned as PEP leader more than 3 months after he resigned. In an interview with Guardian Media yesterday, Wilkinson said there was no transparency in Alexander's resumption of his portfolio. She further criticized him for failing to host internal elections. It's very confusing because as it is right now, an internal elections needs to be transparent. You need to have like a regular voting situation. You call out all your paid up members and all your people who are supporters of the PEP who wish to be members. You give them the time to do it. You can't have an internal election today for today. Wilkinson recalled that she, alongside 2 other political leaders, became the head of the PEP 2 days after Alexander resigned. She said both Prasad and Camps elected her interim leader, but the trio's tenure lasted 1 month after she alleged that they were blocked from effecting changes within the party. What PM meeting is that positive? She alleged that they were not assisted by the chair or research officer to create a constitution or bylaws, and they could not get information on the party's finances. It seems a lot like the party maintained loyalty to its true owner. That just seems to be the reality of what that was. And in a case like that, can, all right. And in a case like that, can it really be said by that party that they are the more legitimate political party, when it is that the party is run like the private property of one of their leaders? Wasn't that some of the allegations that were thrown out against the Tobago guy? Not the chief secretary, the guy with the old party in Tobago. Yes, positive radiation, that oneself. And for me, I've said it before, the PP isn't necessarily my cup of tea. But one of their few saving graces to me was that they went it alone. That it seemed like, okay, they believe they have a political view and they are going to attempt to express that political view in our landscape all on their own. Because many parties in Trinidad and Tobago seem like pressure groups to get a better position in the UNC. Many political parties seem like that. They seem like they go out, they attempt to gin up support in the wider country, and then return to the UNC showing like, okay, I have some support behind me. So now when I join back with you, UNC, you must put me in a greater position of power. And that's not a positive thing for garnering support. People don't want to feel like they would be conned into just supporting one of the two major parties that already exist. They could support one of those two parties if they so choose already. They can. So that isn't even necessary. But the UNC, I think, is making some wiser moves in their campaigning. I don't know if their campaign moves would be enough to sway against the difficulties of a leader who has lost so many elections in a row. I don't know if that's enough. But their campaign this time around does seem to be a bit more thought out. Former St. Lucia PM hails UNC leader as visionary. Alan Chastanet, opposition leader and former Prime Minister of St. Lucia, defined UNC leader Kamla Prasad-Visesa as a visionary and tipped her to become TT's next PM. Chastanet also divulged plans to create a body for opposition leaders from the region to ensure their voices were heard by the Caribbean Development Bank, World Bank, and CARICOM. He delivered a vibrant address at the UNC's anti-crime talks in Sangre Grande on Monday night. I am here tonight to stand in solidarity with your former Prime Minister, and more particularly, she is a leader of the opposition. I am here tonight to give her support and say that she is in the right direction. She is setting an example for all the other leaders of opposition. That our job is not just to protest or oppose, but to create platforms like today to give people a voice to speak. And I kind of agree. The idea of giving people a voice to speak, the idea of actually allowing the population to feel like they are part of that opposition, I think that's a positive on the UNC side. And I think that might work well going into the next election, where the opposition isn't just opposing inside of Parliament, but they are attempting to get what the country opposes with the government. So it's not that they are opposing the government on their own political motives and are attempting to convince the country to join their political motives in opposing the government. No, but you go out there and find out what the country already opposes the government in, and you align your political motives with that opposition that is already there in the grassroots, if you will. That seems a wise idea. UNC wants Joint Select Committee to probe SSA. Oh, Uchiha King. The opposition UNC wants the Parliament's National Security Joint Select Committee to investigate the circumstances which led to the SSA Director Major Roger Best being sent on administrative leave, TT Ambassador to Washington, D.C. Brigadier General Anthony Philip Spencer being made acting SSA Director, and the agency's operation being reviewed. The NC made this call in a signed letter to JSC Chairman MP Keith Scotland from MP Rudal Munilal, and opposition Senator Jayanti Lachmedial. Munilal and Lachmedial are the opposition's representatives on this committee. In their letter, they called for the committee to summon National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines, his immediate predecessor, Energy Minister Stuart Young, Commissioner of Police Erla Howard Christopher, and other National Security Minister officials to appear before the JSC and answer questions into the sudden and suspicious decision to send the director of the SSA and install an acting director in his stead. I am a math teacher, but if you're talking about the math teacher online specifically, you may be talking about a guy that may be my brother. But this move also from, I think, from the opposition is also wise in the same line, because we saw recently that the JSC had some positive public results. People looked at the JSC content. People looked at the questions asked by the JSC, and there was much more of a positive response to the JSC questioning than perhaps the Commission of Inquiry. So I think asking for more JSCs on the opposition part is a positive thing, because they stand to only gain from that. The opposition has nothing to lose from dragging people before select committees and grilling them with questions. And to me, on the country's side, from the country's perspective, I say we stand to gain from such too. I think the country benefits from the opposition moving smarter, from the opposition starting to be a little more intelligent. I think that's something the country would benefit from too, where the government cannot be as lackadaisical and slack in their actions as sometimes they seem like they are willing to be. And a better opposition allows for the questions that need to be answered to be answered. As I said, I agree with the opposition calling for the Joint Select Committee on this whole SSA business, because otherwise it's something that the government would browbeat the public with, throw it out there and just leave it as that. The answers that were given already by the government, I don't think those answers are sufficient for what the public wants to know. But how is the public going to get their view out there anymore? That's where the opposition comes in. And I'd say I have a lot of questions still about this whole SSA business. It seems highly suspicious. Rowley and SSA heads dismissal. We got troubling info from TTPS. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley says the decision to remove Major Roger Best as head of the SSA was based on troubling info provided to the National Security Council by the TTPS. The information, he said, warranted drastic intervention. Speaking with members of the media at the opening of the Diego Martin Public Library yesterday, Dr. Rowley was, however, caged with specifics regarding exactly what the TTPS is investigating, only admitting it dealt with personnel, equipment, and processes of the SSA. And here's the thing, when you tell the country that a security service, the head of that security service, had to be removed with drastic urgency. To me, the suggestion to the country is we are to expect criminal charges any day now. Because what other possible reasons could there be that would be so drastically important to remove the head of a security agency? What reasons could there be if it's not criminal? And if it's not criminal, and you aren't telling us, how are people to not assume that it's not just you exercising political power to manufacture a security state that would work in your favor? How are people to not assume that? That would be the logical assumption. If you don't see someone being charged criminally, if they don't tell you what the other reasoning is, what other assumption do you expect the public to make? I am sorry. It seems like this government's intention is that the public must assume that the government is their daddy and assume that the government has their best interest at heart. I am sorry, I apologize if this disappoints anyone in governance. But at least for me, I don't have the assumption that politicians are seeking my best interest at heart at all times. That's not my default assumption. So you tell people it's some drastic set of information. People see no charges put forward, and you give them nothing else. I saw this article. Suspicious church hirings. Why director sent on leave? Strategic Services Agency Director Major Roger Best was sent on administrative leave over the questionable recruitment of specific individuals within the SSA. Best was sent on immediate leave on Saturday until the resolution of an investigation into the claims. In its media release on Sunday night, however, the Office of the Prime Minister, in announcing, we know what the OPM said. Intelligence sources told the Express that the recruitment allegations involving Best surfaced after several SSA employees raised concerns with officials within the Ministry of National Security that Best was employing several persons from the same church he attended. Remember, what about Faris and Nelson? Are you telling me that the drastic information that caused a lockdown is that there was some nepotism in him hiring brethren from his church? Really? I don't want to believe that's the cause. I don't want to believe that some slight nepotism, hiring people from someone's church, is lockdown investigation worthy. Because nepotism is how nearly all government agencies run. So this wouldn't be something that's so surprising and strange to this agency as opposed to all the others. Again, more questions. So I do support the opposition's call. Bring everyone in front of a joint select committee and allow them to answer some of these questions. Even if they lie on the answers, at least let them have to lie to the public. Let us see it, because the answers that we are being given right now, they don't add up. They don't add up. The math is not mathsing. I don't know that Sheldon can, but I do know that politicians from all sides of the political divide have family members in state companies through the wazoo, all over. All over. That's nothing, that's not a strange thing. There are UNC senior members with family members still in state companies functioning. Let's not pretend like it's a strange thing. Yo, Miko, what's going on? Rocco says that's nothing new. No, it isn't anything new. Nothing new at all in that. I still live in America, so I ought to mind my business, just here to learn. Well, I mean, America has a lot of politics to talk about all on their own. America's politics is complicated all on its own. The Supreme Court just got involved recently, so I mean, you all have politics to look at yourself. Polygraphic test for all ministers. I don't know how that would work, and you know the polygraph isn't admissible generally, but what questions would you ask them in the first place? And even if they fail the polygraph test, then what? You see, the thing with our political system is the reason there aren't so many checks and balances like polygraphs and the ministers is that they are voted for. We are supposed to be the polygraph. We are supposed to be the polygraph, as it were. And if we determine that they are lying, we are not supposed to vote for them. But in Trinidad and Tobago, because of the nature of our parties and politics, someone could be a murderer caught on live camera. If they're in the right political party, in the right constituency, they will still receive votes. Good night, Jackies. Yes, people can be trained to pass polygraph tests. It is something that could be treated. A lot of people are paid to vote. Yes, true. A lot of people are paid to vote. It's the reality of the system. And a lot of people are directly paid to vote, and a lot of people are indirectly paid to vote. The government promises them a job, a home, an education for their children. We are going to take care of everything for you, and if you vote for us, that's what you get. They're trying to buy the vote. That's what the government is doing, trying to buy your vote. It's either they're trying to buy your vote with your money, or they're trying to buy someone else's vote with your money. So paid to vote isn't a strange thing at all. Anyway, people, what's going on? Any questions or comments on the inside? I don't know if you all are still keeping up with this news on the tugboat and all of that. This story is getting warped and deep. A Guyanese businessman's name is being called. He seems to be known in some shady dealings. Hopefully we could get a name to put on a lawsuit. I guess that's what we could hope for. I heard as of tonight, as of midnight, no hose. We're talking garden hoses here. HOSE. A boat from Panama with a Nigerian owner. Well, the Nigerian owner, when you read that story, the Nigerian owner seems like he was an owner for rent. They called someone who seemed to be the legitimate owner. He told them he isn't the legitimate owner, gave them a number for some random Nigerian guy, and told them, call this guy, this is the owner. And the Nigerian guy is just spouting random information. He doesn't even know a lot about the ship. He's just spouting information. I wouldn't doubt there are conman services you could hire where a Nigerian offers his services that, you know what, if ever, as a businessman, if ever you find yourself in trouble, just tell them your company belongs to me. We will write up a fake something and show them that and let them call me and I will talk to them. And it could nearly seem like that's the kind of move that was made there, because the Nigerian businessman makes absolutely no sense in the entire thing. There's a Guyanese guy who works out of Panama, is known to be involved in illicit fuel trading out of Venezuela, has history illegally trading in Guyana there, has history of his directors' names being listed as being owners of the vessels, but somehow he is saying, you know, it's not me. Paul Duncan says, I have two hoes. If Wassa take one, I have another. Lol. I mean, I am not even sure how Wassa is going to know all of this hose action. Hoses are generally used inside people's property. Jacques Deod is denying it to the cross. Well, you see, for Guyana, this could be a bit of a stink for Guyana, because allegedly the fuel was headed to a state company, a state power company inside of Guyana. And if illegal Venezuelan fuel is powering the power company that is owned by the state in Guyana, you could understand that, you know, you could run into some problems with the sanctioners. The main sanctioners up north, you could run into some problems with them. So, of course, Guyana is going to deny this. And they have a few buffers when you read the story. And it seems very convenient, too, that lots of people have plausible deniability. They bid it out to this company subcontract it to this company, who subcontract it to this company and send it to this company and that company and that company. And eventually, some company was smuggling fuel from Venezuela, it seems. The long and the short of the story is smuggled from Venezuela to Guyana. Reeve says, I thought Guyana and Venezuela not on speaking terms no more. Reeve, you're acting like you don't understand that money is a language of its own. We don't need to be friends to talk money. We don't need to like each other for our money to communicate well with each other. Listen, racist people forget their racism for the right price, you know. So all this talk about not speaking terms and who vex and what vex, we have nothing there. Sheldon Can says, so what's Stuart's involvement? I don't know. You see, forcing the assumption that the PNM government in Trinidad must have something to do and trying to drag in Petrotrin and all of that might stretch the thing more than it needs to be stretched, and may actually make the story lost. It is also possible that the Trinidad and Tobago government didn't have a hand to play in it. That is a possibility. It's also possible that they did have a hand to play, or they did have a hand to play in keeping it quiet when it initially happened. I wouldn't be surprised at that, because there would be lots of benefit all the way around for an incident like this to get still in the news as before all of this information surfaced. You would not have wanted all of this information surfacing the hour after the crash happened, after the boat ran aground. If an hour after the boat ran aground, all of the information we have now was surfacing, I think other people would have been brought to account very quickly. But there is some benefit to delaying the information, and you could wonder if that was Trinidad and Tobago's government's role, because you could feel like some of the information was a bit slow rolled out. I don't know for a fact. I don't know. Assumptions. But any comments or questions on the inside before I dive out? That's all I have for now tonight, folks. I'm glad I caught the end of the party. I'm glad you did too, Miko. I'm glad you did too. You're welcome. All right, if there are no further comments or questions on the inside, Tanticam said no to banning Trinidad. Thank you, Fabian King and Paul Duncan. Well, to be fair, Cardell, the Prime Minister, I believe, also said no to banning the music. I think he spoke to the promoters and producers and those guys and said, you know, it's their job to try and curtail the lyrics. But I agree I have said this before, banning the music seems like an unwise idea. I am not even sure how you're going to ban the music. What, are you going to ban it from the radio airwaves? Well, the music wasn't popularized on the radio anyway, and the majority of the youths don't listen to the music on the radio. It's YouTube. So, like, are you going to try to appeal to YouTube to ban all Trinidad music? Good luck with that. I don't even know how you would ban the music. Like, the people who talk about banning, do they think it's still like the 1950s where you have 2 radio stations and the government could send officers to the radio station and tell them stop playing XYZ? No, that's not what the reality we live in anymore. Banning music is an archaic take that largely never works and couldn't work in this era anyway. Exactly. I don't know how you're going to do something like that. And just the fact that the day you tell people that this is banned music, watch all of those youth love it more. Watch all of those youths love it more. Hey, this is banned music. Oh, well, all the more music to love. That's not going to stop the youths from taking in the music, liking the music, enjoying it and reciting it, if you will. Manning would have done it. No, I don't think Manning would have done that at all, because it would not have made sense. It wouldn't have worked. But yeah. Anything else? What's your take on the KFC doubles fight? My take on the KFC is people are vexed with the wrong people. If you're listening enough of my lives, when they raised minimum wage, I said it back then. Watch all the prices go up. And I think when I was talking about that, I mentioned KFC too. And then we're surprised that KFC raised their prices. That's obvious. You raised minimum wage. Listen, I have said it over and over. These companies don't pay you based on what the government tells them you are worth. These companies do up a business plan of what they deem your worth is. So, and think of it this way. Don't think of it as a as a dollar and cents value. Don't think of it as a money value. Think of it as a ratio or a percentage. So you are worth, let's say, a cashier in KFC is worth 3 boxes of dinner special. That's their business plan. The business plan for Prestige Holdings is that we could pay our staff at 3 boxes of dinner special is the day pay of a staff. Especially with increased labor costs. Well, that's what I'm talking about, deep thought. In minimum wage increases the labor cost. So, I pay you the equivalent of 3 boxes of a dinner special. The number value on the dinner special is irrelevant. The number value on your salary is irrelevant. The ratio is 3 dinner specials are your salary. If the government goes out there and demands that I pay you $1 million per day, I pay you $1 million per day, all that's going to do is make KFC sell their dinner special at $1/3 per box. Every time it's what's going to happen. They have a business model. They are not going to change their business model to, you know what? We are going to bust. That's what we are going to do. We want to lose money. So we would just happen to increase our labor costs and not have any reciprocal increase on our prices because we want to lose money. Businesses don't function like that. The doubles vendor on the flip side of that generally doesn't need to do that because, one, I don't think doubles workers make minimum wage by and large. By and large, many doubles workers are well paid. Because if someone is a skilled doubles maker or rapper and you don't pay them well, it would be in their benefit to, as the guy with the famous last name said, it would be in their benefit to go and just get their fiberglass box and sell doubles of their own. This is a result of the change in the purpose of capitalism in the 70s to focus on profit margins. What's your thought on the KFC boycott? I mean, big business is greedy now because of the changes in the 80s to buttress this. It's trash. We need a new system. I don't think that's changes. I think businesses are meant to aim at profit. That's how businesses function. And if you try to focus on something other than profit, you get weird incentive structures inside of the business. What's your thought on the KFC boycott? I mean, by all means, if you think that KFC is too expensive for you, I am glad. I'm glad that you boycotted. Maybe you should have boycotted before because it probably really was outside of your budget. So I don't have a problem with that. I'm not biased towards Prestige Holdings so much that I think they must make a profit and live. If their price point is too expensive for the average Trinidadian, by all means, don't buy their food. But I'm saying that it's not a surprising action. It's predictable. People asked for an increased minimum wage, and then we were seeing that prices of products are increasing reciprocally. That's what happens. Nah, you can focus on profit and community health at the same time. We used to do that, but greed won. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I think, so part of the reason that greed could win so easily in what you're trying to describe is global companies, global corporations. Global corporations make it easier for pure greed to win. But for example, if you're a company that has a location, it's in your best interest to work to the benefit of your community because helping your community will help your business. They work in tandem together. But if you have a company that has no link to the local community, well, you tend to get that problem. So that separation of community oriented mindedness and profit, I think that's not necessarily a fault of capitalism and greed. It's a fault of globalism and the world becoming smaller. So I am in central Trinidad, and I could open a company in Sangre Grande, and I have no real care for the community of Sangre Grande. I don't have care to invest in that community. While if it was in a time where my company is opened in my community, my company might bear my name in my community. If I am not treating my community well, that is going to obviously directly affect my company's bottom line. Theon says, what if demand drop? They'll find a way to reduce prices or close down. Exactly. But I don't think people will boycott KFC for long. We'll see. What's your thought on the increase in school violence? I am not sure how much of an increase there is in school violence. I'm not sure. But we have an increase in the violence in our general society. So there's no surprise that it trickles down into the school to me. That seems like obvious. I think these things work in tandem. The global companies have too much reach. What is KFC corporate social responsibility? Who do they support? And you know the strange thing, Paul Duncan, and that's why I said when you attempt to move away from the profit focus, oftentimes you get into some weird incentive structures. So if you go into this ESG business, environmental, social, and governance, where many of the large investment companies are attempting to pressure corporations, pressure capitalist businesses into paying more attention to the environment, to social causes, and to governance causes. And they do that by hinging investment money on a readout of points about how well you do in those areas. The problem with that is then you have massive multinational organizations determining what is the best way for us to see about our environment, what is the best way for us to see about our society, and what is the best way for us to govern ourselves. That's some neo-colonialism, if ever there was. So even in the attempt to make this whole thing not as greedy and profit focused, you end up with some strange incentive structures. So I prefer profit being their main focus and leave the social focus to social groups and social institutions. Good evening, Dane Khan. Yeah, honestly, you just described British Gas and the to a large extent. Any one of these global organizations that attempt to force and impose their will for our society, for our governance, for even our environment on us, that's some neo-colonialism. A lot of these massive first world powers, they abused their natural resources, raped their forests for their industrial age, and got their industrial revolution. Now that they are post the industrial revolution and they have an economy that is past the industrial revolution and they are getting cleaner, they look to the developing world and say, well, no, y'all must be clean, so we're going to have these global organizations, the United Nations and several of these other organizations, make sure to tell you that we must focus on climate and environment, and you cannot do that and you cannot do that, and we must monitor these emissions and those emissions and that, all very conveniently after you have already reached to the top of the ladder. You're saying that climbing those rungs are bad for the environment. On the topic of food, have you considered we have an abundance of sunshine and rainfall but don't focus on agriculture enough? I think a lot of that is personal choice. There are lots of people with access to agricultural land who have no interest in getting into agriculture. And I think it's a ridiculous... It's something that the government fed through the colonial years, that Carney fed through the colonial years, where people believe that before I go plant something, the government must promise me that I must be guaranteed significant income on this crop. That's not how business works. And we just don't have the interest for agriculture. There is agricultural land. Many people have access to it. They don't plant. The UN is merely an historical record of grandeur alongside the occasional truth spoken to power. So on the agricultural topic, it's something I lament. When I drive past old Carney lands, and I know that there was... We have a Minister of Agriculture planting nothing, getting paid for what? The Ministry of Agriculture does a lot. The ministry, listen, this is some of the frustration I have. So, all right, we know that by and large in Trinidad, there's some, at least in central Trinidad, there's some ethnic and political division even in the agricultural lines. And there are some farmers that go up there because they are very pro-UNC and they say the PNM don't do nothing for the farmers and and I know some of them personally because I do agriculture, some gardening and stuff of my own. And I know them personally, and I know that they collected the 100,000 this and the 150,000 that and the easy loan that and the this that and the grant for this and the this for that and the that for that and the free pond that they dug for them and the this and the that. These people are collecting things from a side and then spitting in the face of the agricultural ministry saying that they don't do anything. That's not true. It is not true. And we do have room for people to plant. It's just that many people are not interested in it. The money isn't enough for some people. It's not that there's no money, but the money isn't enough. I could go work to own B15 and go and pull bull on the Trin City taxi stand or the Red Hill Maloney taxi stand, some one of those busy stands, and make a easy $500 in a day working just morning and afternoon. Why am I going to dig some dirt and play around in horse mess and cow feces? I'm not going through all of that. That's why we don't have agriculture. And unless the food prices are allowed to just increase, I don't see how else you motivate people to just go and plant. Yeah, I know many people who let their citrus groves die off due to disinterest. Yep, we should focus more on export than import in agriculture. Yeah, we should. I fed up say this. I've said this over and over. Like, I have a garden. I have cassava round the year. I have more cassava than I could ever deal with. Cassava grows so easily. Like, I mean, it's not magic, but it grows so easily. And yet there are people struggling to find something to eat. Cassava is a staple. You could go nearly anywhere in Trinidad, stick some sticks of cassava, and you're going to get food. Why should we plant more food when we can depend on import? Yeah, I guess that's it. And you know, Ross and Warren, there's an actual legitimate question there. If we are wealthy enough as a nation, where I could go to PriceMart, stock up on imported food, and don't get me wrong, don't you all assume that I don't do any of this. If you all see me in PriceMart with my imported food stock filled in my trolley, mind your business. Mind your business. But if we could do that, if we have the resources where we could do that, and it's not a difficult thing. You go to PriceMart, you make your full trolley of groceries, you go home, and that was 2 days of work for you and your partner or whoever. It's not that difficult. Why would you go and dig the dirt and plant cassava and go and cut green fig and acquire the taste for all of these local produce? You could go and buy some honey bunches of oats and some ready-made milk and pour milk, throw in oats, and you eat a nice meal. Like, there is some reality to why should we, Ross and Warren, and that's the position we are in. Western countries openly discuss preventing other nations from developing past them. They hate China, Theon says. Some of our tastes are too rich for staples. Correct. But some of our tastes are that rich because we are rich. We are rich as a country. That's just the reality. So Guyana is becoming wealthy as a nation. You want to bet that in Guyana, you are going to see less people eating indigenous food, and you are going to see much more fast food outlets pop up. It's reality of development. So we have a large population of our women working. Lots of the mothers in Trinidad and Tobago are working mothers. You know, this woman at home in the dark ages business, we are over that. Well, again, that's going to cause more food to be bought. That's going to cause more food to be bought because preparing local food generally takes more time. It has to be prepared probably from scratch. If you're talking about a home house garden, that's someone that needs to tend that garden. Someone needs to have time at home to tend that garden. So if you don't have those things anymore, okay, you don't have the time to grow anything at home, you don't have the time to prepare home cooked meals from local produce. Well then, what do you have in exchange for that lost time? Well, you have some money. What you're going to do with that money is pay for the faster foods to fill in the spaces. It is what it is. And unless we could convince people that the local foods are better for them on their own worth and value, I'm not sure how you're going to get people to move to that direction. I'm just not sure. Maybe like in a country like ours where we have our own levels of good night Rose Petal Angel Nick, maybe in a country where we have centralization in the level that we do in certain things like even the school feeding program, well, maybe the school feeding program needs to ban rice. Like, how about that idea? The school feeding program only feeds the children of our nation things that grow in our nation. That's an idea that's going to create an automatic natural pressure demand on local produce, because that means every single school day a large amount of local produce would have to be cooked and used. So you make a natural demand there for local produce, and you're forcefully changing the nation's taste. And I mean, that is what public school is for. When you know people talk about public school and the reason for public school is brainwashing the children and making good work up, they are kind of right. That is what public school is for. Public school is so that the nation could have control of the next generation. And well, if we want control of the next generation, shouldn't we control their appetite? We're talking about that. We're talking about finding ways to change the taste of our people. Change it in the children. These children don't want cassava. Well, that's the thing. Many children don't want the food that is given in the school feeding program. But if they don't want it, they could not eat it. That's all. But I believe a generation would pass of those who like eat cassava until the ones who just came into the system and cassava was what they knew since the system started. And there's no agreed cassava when cassava is all you know. Is Monday cassava, Tuesday cassava, Wednesday Edos, Thursday dashing. And well, we might allow our roti. I mean, for cultural reasons. I understand that we import the flour, but we might allow a roti day just for cultural reasons, you know, to maintain the historical and cultural links. Imagine you telling your great-grandchildren about something called pilau from a long time. Ha ha ha. Thean says our leaders not on that, just about maintaining the status quo. A lot of them are, especially the PNM probably. Sheldon Khan says, how do we provide opportunities to reduce unemployment? Perhaps foreign fast food chains should add local foods to their menus. No, that's not going to happen. Blue food is indeed better for you, I agree. Green fig, breadfruit, yam, and cassava are redundant foods. I wish provision come for box lunch. You would see how healthy and chunky all the children getting. All of a sudden, all of Trinidad and Tobago's children start to look like Tobagonians. Everybody get that healthy Tobagonian girth. How do we provide opportunities to reduce unemployment? Reducing unemployment is activating our economy really and truly. That's what you need to do, activate the economy more and more and more. And like, the reason I pause thinking about that is because in a country like ours where the government employs so many people, sometimes when you talk about unemployment, many people think about just the government acting and giving people more jobs. But I think in the long run that hurts employment. Tobago men fine as hell, you stop there. I didn't say anything about fine or not fining. I talk about health. Good night, Riley. All right, people. Any further questions or comments? Or is this the point where I dive out? Hey, Ronnie, where were you all the time? Riley, don't do me that. Don't do me that. We went through some flat earth in the earlies. Don't do me that. Like, are there still flat earthers out there? You know, when I first read about it, and so YouTube gets no love with people commenting on YouTube. That's why I don't really look at the YouTube, and nobody usually comments over there. That's all to it. But yeah, when I first saw this whole flat earth business, I was like, nobody actually there aren't actual believers in this flat earth business, are there? To my surprise, there are. Hey, Ronnie says over on YouTube, he will say anything to taste power. Good night, Kareem Delpesh. Krimak. No, bro. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Let's not do that, Krim. Not you too, Paul Duncan. We're not going through that. I'm not going through that. I am not going through that. Listen. Like, I like geography. I teach geography. Hey, you know what? It's a long time since I mentioned. As per usual, this is all still being brought to you by Mindful Education. Mindful with 2Ls_education. If you're looking for our page on Instagram, it's the educational institution that I run. We offer learning pods from preschool all the way up to CXC and private classes, private tuition, one-on-one tuition for most CXC and CAPE subjects if you are interested in that. And I teach geography too, so I have no problem explaining the globe and all of that. But it kind of starts to hurt my brain talking to legit flat eaters, because, and I mean no insult to people who legitimately believe these things, but after speaking to a couple of these people, I have come to certain realizations. The flat earther community is populated by a lot of people who did not pay attention in school, and upon reaching their adulthood, suddenly realized the importance of information, and they're trying to make themselves smart, having already missed a lot of the building blocks from the school days. there are very few people that performed well in school and go around with this flat earther business. I'm just saying, because it's like, y'all ever play Jenga? Where you have, you know, the 3 blocks this way and then the 3 blocks this way and then the 3 blocks. You know Jenga? You ever play Jenga with somebody who doesn't understand physics? So, you know, somebody took out one of the blocks on the side. There are 2 blocks here, on one block in the middle, 1 block on the side, and this person is trying to take out the middle block. And they're convinced the tower will stand up because, you know, they don't really have a good grasp of physics. And no matter how you try to explain to them that it is literally impossible. No, and they'll be like, but why is it impossible? No, you're just trying to con me. No, it is literal. And people who don't have a grasp of physics, they don't understand why it's impossible. Because they don't understand physics. And you get a lot of that from the flat earthers. I remember watching a flat earther do an experiment to disprove himself in live video, and confused totally as to what is going on. Like here, to me, the statements on the moon landing possibly being faked, you could get me with that. We never reach space. Nah, we reach space. We obviously reach space. You could look up in the sky and see satellites. We reach space. It has no space. All right, brother. so Elon and those guys at SpaceX are just shooting satellites up into the cloth over us, up into the black cloth covering us. But all right, you could get me on the arguments about the moon landing. Honestly, like, you could get me to say, all right, I could understand the debate on the moon landing. I'm not going to put my head on a block that the United States wouldn't fake a technological giant leap, especially in the space race days when there was a kind of military Cold War business going on too. I could believe they would fake that. I could believe that. But that's not the same thing like telling me we are living on a saucer. And all these cameras, all these planes, all these helicopters, we don't know how the edge looks. We've never seen the ice wall. So we're going around the sun through space at X amount of miles. I actually believe that, yes. Yes, we are. And you see, again, I think some of that, it comes from physics understanding. Like, some people can't believe that they say the earth is moving that fast. Now we would have must feel that if you understand the physics of it. It's actually easy to see how it's possible. If you sit in an airplane that could be moving at hundreds of kilometers per hour, you don't necessarily feel the movement. It's possible. I urge some of you, and I mean no disrespect with this. You all know if you're a faithful to the life, you all know I am not a credentialist. I am not one who believes that the only way to know something is to be credentialed in it. I'm not the one to go down that road with you. But I urge you, educate yourself on topics. Make sure you understand the topic. At least you understand the opposing views of the topic. Go look at the opposing views of whatever topic it is. Make sure you understand that. I was speaking to a guy on this once, and he reached to the part of the sun doesn't heat the earth. The earth is really heated from underneath only. The sun is only a light. You don't get any heat from the sun. And people who didn't understand integrated science in Form 3 are attempting to quote for you university postgraduate physics on plasma relationships. And it's not that I am belittling someone's education, but sometimes in order to understand up there, you need to have a grasp of the thing down here. And you're trying to understand something up here that's beating you and confusing you because you don't have a grasp of the foundation. And a lot of these misinformed people going to vote and run for office. Yes, Miko. Well, explain why America can pass anti-clockwise and go to China. What? I honestly don't know what you mean. Do you mean pass over the Pacific and go to China? Are you saying there are no flights from the US over the Pacific that go to Asia? Is that what you believe? Okay. If you believe that. And like, the thing is, some conspiracies, Kareem Delpesh over on YouTube says, I've stopped being friends with people with people once they claim to be flat earthers. I could feel you, Kareem. I could feel you. I could feel you, because it feels like there must be a level of bold ignorance to go into that flat earther business. There are plenty that go over the Pacific. The Atlantic route is more populated, more money to make. Yes, militant rockstar. Los Angeles to Australia is the longest flight in the world that passes over the Pacific. I think the flights from LA fly over the Pacific to go Asia, straight flight. Indigo G says Earth is flat, no doubt. And here's the problem I have with some of these conspiracies. The conspiracies assume too highly of humans. You're telling me that you could get all the pilots in the world to be convinced of a lie? Or is it that all the pilots in the world, once they finish pilot school, they have to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, where they agree that we know the earth is flat, but we will all pretend it is round. You have a soft spot for him because he means well. Aliens build the pyramids too. Hey, I don't know. I wasn't there. Boats, planes, and cars don't move upside down. Are you sure? Are you sure they don't? And where do you fall if you fall off of this flat earth? Like, yes, Cadel, exactly. Like, if you fall off the flat earth, where do you fall to? What's outside there? Do you just fall in perpetuity? You fall into infinity? Because, I mean, there's no space. There's no space, so where do you fall? And why can't cars move upside down, Indigo G? What stops cars from moving upside down? Because The thing that they say stops cars from driving upside down is gravity. The whole basis for gravity is based on a globe. So, what's your explanation as to why things can't drive upside down? You can solve this issue easily. Launch a balloon from a balloon with a camera into space to see for yourself. Listen, they're going to say you're using a fisheye camera. That's what they always say, RL. Fisheye lens. Fisheye lens, they will say, RL. Fisheye lens. Check Operation Fishbowl. Miko says if Carla has 3 mangoes and pelts one at Boyo's foot. I understand, Miko. It's because it's obvious that some things are missing from earlier stages. We are discussing too far along in this whole thing. We have to go back. We have to go back some steps because obviously something is missing from earlier on. Indigo G says I have videos debunking all them things. Yeah, you debunk gravity. All right, Indigo G. All right, young Newton. What they calling you, Isaac? You debunked gravity, and yes, gravity isn't real. You know, you might really make me click on your profile to see this video debunking gravity. Ah. And here's the thing, people. Discipline is a transferable skill. If you don't have discipline, if you didn't have discipline to learn in school days, unless you change your approach to learning, you wouldn't have discipline now. And you would have a bad approach to learning, which would make you, it would make you get the surface level entertainment things without getting the informational side. An ice wall guarded by the US. Okay. Stay in school, kids. So it's the US fault. The US is guarding the ice wall. All right. Okay. To be none of these things surprise me, because I have had these discussions before. I have traversed this rabbit hole, and I have seen how deep it goes. That's why anytime it's brought up, there's oil in the pool. Anytime it's brought up, I just can't help but laugh and be flabbergasted, because I already know where this goes. I've seen the end of it. I've been down this rabbit hole, and I could tell you the rabbit hole ends in insanity. It doesn't get any saner down this rabbit hole. It doesn't get any better going down. It only gets worse. The hollow earth theory. Hey, let me go and eat late in the night and put on a belly. People, that's all I have for now. You all go read your physics work. Don't drop out of your geography classes, so you won't be out here thinking the earth is flat and the US is guarding an ice wall around us. Explain why gravity is balance of the earth is wrong. You mean because the earth is wrong? Oh, you're a firmamenter. Okay. All right. And you know what's interesting with some of the firmamenters? they get caught up on the word firmament because, you know, there's biblical precedent about the word firmament in the Bible and what does firmament mean, and do you all understand firmament and the firmament in the beginning and the, you know, firmament is just an English word that was from the King James English. That wasn't even the original word in the original book, in the original Bible. So, like, the obsession and the firmament business, go find out the original meaning of this firmament. What do you mean when you say firmament? Using the King's English. That's all that is. Old English. All right, Krimak, explain why gravity is balanced if the Earth is round. I am not getting exactly what you're asking me there. If the Earth is round and gravity is pulling us down onto the Earth, then we could stay on the Earth. Like I'm not understanding exactly what you're asking me there, Kermit. I could explain the theory of gravity and how they theorize gravity works. Come to the light. I'm sorry, that sounds like darkness to me, bro. That sounds like some darkness to me. Because the people in this, the people that believe this stuff could never explain simple things. You ask them, they're telling you about the firmament. This guy talking about the firmament. Ask him about the hydrological cycle. Ask him about the water cycle. What happens to water? And they wouldn't know. But they want to come to tell you about the firmament and the deep, dark secrets of the universe. And they don't know about evaporation. They don't know what evaporation is. Make sure none of them mindful youths flat eating could never be Reeve. I will instill corporal punishment in mindful education as pertaining flat eating. Wendell, I spoke about that one. I said you could argue me on the moon landing. I wouldn't put my head on a block that the United States would not have faked a technological giant leap in a time where there was a space race and there was a lot of boasting rights and there was a Cold War brewing in the background. So I wouldn't argue that it is possible for them to have faked that. I wouldn't argue that. Now, I am not going to say, as some people say, I know for sure that they did fake it, because I don't know. But you could argue that. There's a reasonable argument for that. There's no reasonable argument for the Earth being flat. There's none. Hey, Indigo, stop watching flat earther videos. Pick up a CXC physics book. After you finish CXC physics, return to flat earthing. Do that for me. Get a 1 in CXC physics, a 1 in CXC physics, a 1 in CXC math. That's all. You don't even have to believe it. Just prove to us that you could assimilate the information. Come, I'm not even talking degrees, I'm not talking CAPE. CXC. Get a 1 in CXC physics and CXC geography, and then return and speak. Here's the thing. Any flat earther that has a 1 in CXC physics and in CXC geography, you could speak and convince me. No, Reeve. I want a 1. I want you to show me that you have such a grasp of physics that you could decide that all of the other physicists are dead wrong, and you could be so confident in your decision. You must be a genius in physics to do something like that, so prove it to us. So, by all means, if you bring your certificate showing me that 1 in physics and 1 in geography, convince me. You would convince me. Until then, rest the firmament. Rest the firmament. I'm sure we don't even know what firmament mean. Alright, people. I'm actually going this time. Laters, I hope you are educated, informed, or entertained as usual. This was good. It's always good. I enjoy doing this. I'll see you guys again for the next Mindful Life. That's going to be tomorrow, Wednesday, around that 9:30 p.m. time. Until then, people, stay well, stay safe. I'm out. Bye.